Second motion. Discussion? Ms. Pond?
Yes. Move to approve the amendments to the wind energy conversion facilities ordinance.
Second that motion as well. Discussion, Council Pond?
Thanks, Mr. President. This obviously has been before us for a long time. It was in the previous administration's Planning Development Committee, the previous Council Planning Development Committee did not come to a conclusion on the amendments that we deemed appropriate, but after an extensive public hearing process, that at my last count had more than 40 individuals testifying, and many of them multiple times, as evidenced by some of them were in attendance here tonight. I think that what we brought forth tonight is an improvement on the work that was done previously that permits the siting of wind energy facilities in the industrial zone. The specific elements of this, which were approved by a vote of 3-0 by the committee this evening, are several. One, it notifies potential abutters, but also affected residents, which has a broader definition, including those that may be affected by flicker or noise or other nuisances or environmental impacts into the process. So they're notified earlier rather than later in the process. Second, it provides some specific requirements for applicants to address the issue of flicker, as we've come to know it, which is a far greater nuisance, a far greater impact than we had heretofore understood. Third, there are certain elements of this that we've technically changed so that it is more closely in line with the practices of the planning department. So an application coming in would not be prejudiced against success or in favor of success by virtue of the fact that the planning department was going to have to jump through some different hoops than they're used to jumping through. So we eliminate the likelihood of inadvertent errors being made that could lead to an approval that we think is not qualified or merited, or rejection of a proposal that we think should be gaining permission to be built. And then the last item is the one that is most generic and perhaps most controversial, depending on who you talk to, and that is the changing of the setbacks and the notices of the individuals who are notified about a facility that might take place. The formula we've come up with is 3 times the height of the highest point of a facility. A 100-foot high turbine, that is the highest point of the blades being 100 foot, would have to meet a 300-foot setback as opposed to the present situation. One that's 250 feet, I'm using that number as an arbitrary number, would have to have a 750-foot setback, which reduces the likelihood of impacts, either sound or flicker, or some of the safety issues that have been suggested by individuals who are critical of our present ordinance. I can't let this moment pass without thanking the residents, particularly the Hill Street area residents, who have been tireless and very helpful in conducting research that helped inform our decision. It's not that we agreed on everything, but we heard everything that people said. And we had to exercise our best judgment about what was most important to correct in the ordinance that we have before us. And so I thank them publicly. I hope that they could go home tonight knowing that they had an appreciable impact in a positive way on helping us correct the errors that we had made in the previous draft. And now, I hope they can sleep better and find a new hobby. But in the meantime, I do hope you'll look at these amendments favorably and act so tonight.
Councilor Rose.
In many ways, when I started this, the last administration brought this out for review, and again, this time I was expecting more, honestly. But that being said, I want to thank the chair and the planning development committee for doing one heck of a good job. There was a lot of differing and often emotional testimony from both sides, And in any case, it is a compromise, and in government, we tend to compromise, which means nobody's happy, but we all can go away grumbling together and perhaps come back and mean, another issue. So again, I want to thank you. It was a yeoman's task. You all did very well. A lot of patience, and it does protect future abutters and the city from what we saw happen. And I don't think purposely at the Mark Ritchie site. There's nothing. I'm not saying Mark Ritchie did anything wrong at all. We didn't know what was happening as a council. I should say the last council. We didn't know. We were led to believe some things by professionals. They probably well-meaning, thinking that that's what they meant. But again, all in all, thank you very much. Maybe this is the first step. Maybe in 2 years we open this up again, who knows, but for right now, I think we can put it to bed, think on it in a while, and see what comes down the road. Thank you.
Just echoing some of the sentiments of Council Earls, thanking the committee for their hard work. You started the council, you started the conversation with this is the first step. And sometimes the longest journeys begin with one step. And this is certainly a step in the right direction. And I hope that we can continue to look at this, review it, tweak it if you will, but come to get at some point the perfect compromise in this ordinance. But again, thank you for everything you've done.
This evening, I'm gonna vote against this, and I definitely want to thank Planning and Development for their hard work on this, and I know that in the previous term there was a lot of hard work done as well. But my thinking is more about the principle in terms of unfinished business, and I want to be on the record for not feeling that the work is done in this term. My belief is that in the prior term, we just simply ran out of time, and that was really meant to be, ongoing work, kind of passing the baton to the next term. And I think through the joint hearing with the planning board and other meetings, the impression was taken as though we had finished our business. And we did have extensive public hearings, but I think particularly in the area of the ordinance covering the clear area, there's work to be done. And I still feel strongly that the special permit granting authority should not be the ZBA, and that's an anomaly as compared to other cities and towns in the state. And then also a really critical factor, which states that whether it's the height of the structure or other very serious factors can be overturned, even though the ordinance states here are the standards. Upon the discretion of the ZBA, they can say otherwise. And I wanted that to be changed as well. So I'll be voting against this, not because I don't agree with a lot of the excellent measures that were taken, I certainly do, but more so as a statement that I really think that we need to continue to work on this and not necessarily put it to rest. So, thank you.
Councilor Rizzo?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to echo the sentiments of my fellow councilors and thank the Planning and Development Committee for their hard work, and thank the various residents and business owners throughout the city and various stakeholders who have all contributed to this. That said, I'm curious. I was just going back in my notes to the January 11th meeting when this ordinance was introduced and referred to committee, and I saw approximately 13 pages. Bringing it out of committee today, I don't see anything in front of me. Is there a copy I don't know of? Saying that, and also in consideration of the council's decision earlier tonight to move the expedited permitting and stretch code ordinances to committee. The expedited permitting ordinance refers to a permitting coordinator, which may answer the question Councilor Ives just raised. So saying that, I'll be voting against this tonight, hoping that perhaps this and the other two can all be worked together at the same time. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Mr. President, I do have in my hands the final copy presented by the chairman of the committee. I don't know if it's changed in any small way from when it's introduced, but I do have a final copy coming out of committee. south.
Councilor.
Please. A couple of small comments I'd like to make, and that is, one, this was a long iterative process that involved the input of a lot of different people, and I appreciate the fact you'd like to read chapter and verse, and it's not a public record, it has been in the clerk's office since it was originally submitted. The changes are, as I presented them, and which the committee voted on, consistent with our discussion and our deliberations on what we had to do. But I'm kind of struck, and this is perhaps a generic comment relative to the way we deliberate on matters, that, you know, laws change. We change. This is our best effort right now. Is it perfect? I don't know. I don't think it is. Is it an improvement? Yes. I think any reasonable person looking at it would say it is an improvement. But I'm also reflecting upon something that our departed senior senator Ted Kennedy used to say. He said, don't let the perfect become the enemy of the good. Just because it does not meet the specific requirements of every one of them, you know, I think everyone in this room probably has something I'd like to add to that or tweak it some way. I know I do. But I didn't think I could get the votes to do those things. And so I looked for some sort of agreement with my colleagues and with the proponents for the changes that meant the most to them, and trying to balance that against the desires of the Energy Advisory Committee to not stuff this genie back in the bottle, but allow it to leak out in a more rational and a little more controlled fashion. And that's where we are now. For all I know, in 5 years, this type of wind turbine may be obsolete. Maybe something else is before us. I don't know what it could be. There are a lot of innovative folks out there, a lot of clever people thinking about ways to generate energy, to reduce our carbon footprint on this planet. I think this is a pretty darn good stab at an improvement over what we've had before. Perfect? I'll never claim that anything I do here is perfect. Better than it was? Yeah, I think this is.
Any further discussion?
Mr. President, I'd just like to echo some of the thoughts offered by Councilor Connell. I too, in the previous term, sat through a lot of the meetings. Very much appreciate all the input and insights and evidence that was given both by folks that were in opposition to wind turbines in near residential areas, but also folks that were proponents. I have a huge bag of stuff at home that I still carry along and treasure. But I think the reality is, you know, this is the time to close this door. This door can be reopened again at some future date if there's new information that we become aware of. Otherwise, we're just sitting here and spinning our gears. There are a couple of phrases for what I'm about to say, and I'll say that the pleasant one, which is Fisher cut bait. You know, I think we need to put this to rest for now. We've discussed it long enough. If there is a market for wind turbines of this size, you know, we'll need to deal with that with the ZBA as the special permit granting authority. There will be tons of public input. I feel like there would be a much better process just because there would be so much more input. Personally, I don't think there will ever be another one of those built in Newburyport. To me, I almost feel like it's a moot point. There was a huge state subsidy that was given to Mark Ritchie's company to build that one. I've heard conflicting thoughts about how much electricity is actually generated by that. Those things are just too big as standalones. Maybe we will see wind farms off the coast someday, or in more rural areas on mountaintops, but I don't think we're going to see them in residential areas in Newburyport. I think we need to be thinking about what the coast is going to look like and what the local municipal role is in those terms. So I'm going to be voting for it. Again, I was a part of listening to a lot of those. Thankfully, I was not reappointed to the Planning and Development Committee, which is one reason why I voted for President O'Brien. But I certainly learned a lot from that process. I think it deserves a yes vote. We'll take it from there and see where that gets us.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
to be for the wind energy ordinance. Councilor Cameron.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Cronin.
Yes.
Councilor Darrowin.
Yes.
Councilor Earls.
Yes.
Councilor Hartquist.
Yes.
Councilor Herzog.
Yes.
Councilor Ives.
No.
Councilor Jones.
Yes.
Councilor Bryant.
Yes.
Ordinance passes. 9-1, one absent.
Anything else, Public safety? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just for clarification, the numbering of